It was a fun Friday night at Gillette Stadium as the Patriots got a little bit competitive with a scrimmage inside Gillette Stadium. Let's break it down for you. Welcome everybody to the Patriots Training Campcast, and we are fresh off of the field at Gillette Stadium where the Patriots switched it up a little bit, guys. Usually these in-stadium practices aren't really competitive, but tonight Mike Vrabel instituted some points. They had a draft between the two teams, and it was actually pretty enjoyable, Paul, wouldn't you say?
I thought it was fun. I don't think it was any more necessarily competitive.
Paul was giddy. He thought it was fun.
I did, and not because I thought the overall execution was all that great. I know Evan's sort of in a dark place.
We'll get to it.
But I thought the way that Vrabel sort of explained, there was going to be scoring on defense for good defensive plays, turnovers, run stuffs and things of the like. Third down stops, third down conversions on offense. So the game never really got out of hand either way because it wasn't ever more than a one-score game because you could get infinite amount of points on a possession. So I thought it was a fun setup. Now I'll let Evan tell you why you shouldn't be too happy about anything that happened.
Look, I don't want to rain on the parade because it was a fun night. And it was a fun setup, and I was glad that we got to get one of these where it felt at least live and competitive. And I've seen so many of these in-stadium practices that are just walkthroughs and glorified walkthroughs, and this was much better than that. It was much more fun than that. And there were standouts, which we'll get to, but let's just call it for what it was. Drake Maye's team, the blue team, turned the ball over 3 times in the practice. Drake had 2 interceptions. Ramondre Stevenson fumbled. These are just the types of practices you just don't want to see repeated. If it's a one-off and it was just a fun night, loose, goofy kind of practice, then that's totally fine. But if we get out there against Washington on Wednesday and you have a joint practice like this, then that's a little bit different. But I'm not going to take this too seriously. I mean, they were doing trick plays. They were doing some crazy stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and take away all these, doom and gloom type observations, but I just don't want to see that repeated. Is that fair? Like, sure. I don't want to keep
It's totally
that.
fair. And I'm obviously, having some fun with Evan. The execution was not very crisp. I thought May had some open targets that he missed on one. I think the second series that he had, I thought he had Stevenson on a little kind of a broken play where I thought he did a really nice job climbing the pocket to avoid some potential pressure. And then Stevenson came free in the end zone and he missed him by a good 5 yards wide. And then I thought the next play, he had a chance for a big play down the sideline to Diggs. May or may not have had room to squeeze one in, but the throw really didn't give him a chance. So there were some ups and downs. I understand where Evan's coming from. You want to see a little bit better execution at this stage, but I kind of take it, for the fun that I think it was intended for with the fans.
Yeah.
I was a fan tonight. I was fanboy. No question.
And that was a loose fan practice. And if that's all we're going to chalk it up to, then that's totally fine. But if I'm Mike Vrabel, personally, I would probably say, hey, we don't practice that way. And we didn't practice that way the first 8 practices.
That's more than fair.
Yep.
That's all.
Absolutely. Well,
I said my piece.
Put a button on the bad stuff. It was ended when Drake Maye threw an interception to Alex Austin, who took to the turf to seal the win for the white team. But let's talk about the good stuff, because there was some fun stuff, and certainly you mentioned some trick plays. We had a double pass for a touchdown to Kyle Williams from Drake Maye, which was a nice play. Just to list some of the big plays, I thought Robert Spillane, nice day for him, had a diving, bobbling interception that he came down with. Also recovered that fumble that Ramondre Stevenson had. Jalen Hawkins coming up with 2 interceptions as well. So, hey, we're looking at the defensive side. Right. We're looking a little positive, but I also just thought, generally speaking, Kayshon Boutte had a couple nice catches, real nice hands catch
Boutte
over
played
the middle.
Well, again.
Pop Douglas continues to kind of show up a little bit. He drew a penalty as well as had a catch. And then the last one I was going to say is Stephon Diggs. You continue to see what he's going to bring to this Patriots offense. So, yes, there were some turnovers, but there were also some fun moments for the crowd, and certainly I think the season ticket holders and the Foxborough residents that were here tonight had some fun.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 guys there, Jalen Hawkins, who we've seen play a lot in that deep safety role, and one of his picks was a double pass by Pop Douglas, so it was a throw by Pop, which is not exactly what we're probably going to see in the regular season very often, but he was still in the right place, and he made the play, and made the play again later on in the scrimmage as well. So looking for that third safety, that free safety body type and skill set, I would say he's the leader in the clubhouse right now for that role. He's made the most impact or the most splash plays. And then I thought this was a really nice practice for, pick notwithstanding, for Pop Douglas and for Kayshon Boutte. I thought both those guys continue to really stand out. Boutte ran that go route down the sideline in the early part of the night, just got right behind the defense, toasted everybody. Just
and I agree
right
with Mike to bring up the crosser later. I think it was that part of the 2-minute drill?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that
Nice
was nice hand catch
boom.
too.
Yep.
I agree. I thought both of those guys were active again, and both kickers. I thought in the stadium. Andy Borregales nailed a 53-yarder late. I think they combined to go 3 for 3 on PATs and 3 for 3 on field goals, and 2 field goals for Borregales. So the kickers responded as well.
Really close competition between those two guys. Like, I feel like it's going to be tough for Parker Romo because they drafted Borregales to really beat him out. But right now, that's a coin flip between those two guys.
And I'll just add too, sometimes inside the stadium here can be a little tricky for kickers, and you might say, well, it's August, but it was a pretty windy night, and the winds can be difficult to navigate inside. And I think just before they started the scrimmage, Borregales missed an extra point. In the open, the old open end. I still call it the open end. But again, maybe he made an adjustment after that because he was nails. 42-yarder, 53-yarder, and he made an extra point too. So good job by the kickers in their first real foray inside the stadium.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing about Pop? I thought during the 2-minute, he caught a little option route underneath the defense to keep the drive going, and the defense ran like a simulated pressure where the end dropped out into coverage, into a zone drop, and in that you can tell it's just Josh McDaniels type stuff where if the end dropped there, like he got to break out towards the sideline away from the defender in the drop, and Pop just did it perfectly. Like he saw it quickly, broke out a little bit, made himself available to the quarterback, ball was out and on him, and that was like Edelman Welker vibes, right? Like that's exactly that type of route, and you've seen it
had a nice camp.
A million times. And we talked about this on PU, just the cerebralness and like taking that next step of thinking the game, not just being able to physically play it, but also being able to think it. I just keep seeing examples of that from Pop, that he's seeing things now that he wasn't necessarily seeing in the first couple years.
So a couple housekeeping things. There were a number of players who didn't participate. Keon White being a notable one, who's generally been healthy. Maybe just a day off for him, perhaps. Mac Hollins, who just came back yesterday, he wasn't out there as well.
Yeah, I think there were 10 or 11 guys that weren't taking part, and all of them have missed practice at some point except for Keon White. Yeah. So that's something we'll monitor now. That we're not going to have any access over the weekend. I'm not sure if the players are off for the whole weekend, but the next time we'll get a chance to see it will be Monday. We'll see if Keon's out there.
Yeah, and we also had a couple players left the game, which is, of course, the danger you take when you have this kind of situation with pads. Kendrick Bourne, seemed like he got tackled to the ground.
Yeah.
He went off, and Caden Wallace as well, which is one to monitor. No, he's not in the front line of the starters right now, Paul, but they've been getting dinged a little bit with that offensive line depth, and right now he's their top left guard backup. There has been some
attrition there. I would still say Cole Strange is the top left guard backup, but he's now working at center with the second group. So, I absolutely would say that is a situation to monitor, because we saw this last year. It was the injuries seem to be concentrated in specific areas, and right now the offensive line is one of those areas. Vidarian Lowe is yet to practice, and you're missing Garrett Bradbury, Morgan Moses on a pitch count. Now you're dealing with City So hasn't been out there, so your depth is getting challenged a little bit. Hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Yeah, last thing, just real quick, Evan, just to highlight, I think Alex Austin is a guy that, Paul, you mentioned.
I think he's had a good camp, too.
He's had a good camp. It's just a nice way to end the practice for him, and really like that he had the mind to get down. I mean, that's a game-type situation where he's thinking about end of game and how do I seal this off and give the ball back to the offense without giving the other team another chance. So I just thought it was a really nice end of the practice for him, a player who at another position where there have been some injuries and they needed him to step up a little bit.
And he feels a little bit a step above in that depth chart order, just in terms of like the Marcellus Dials, and I know DJ James is a name that people are starting to hear more of as like a training camp riser. I still feel like Alex Austin is like maybe a tier above those guys, and even early on in camp, Christian Gonzalez was out there for the first handful of practices, but Carlton Davis wasn't, and it was Alex Austin who was the top backup to Carlton Davis, not any of those other guys that I mentioned. So I feel like Austin's pretty secure now as that third boundary corner. You usually need three to carry you throughout the season, even injuries or just game plan. Like sometimes there might be a matchup where, Gonzo's better suited in the slot, or Carlton Davis is covering a tight end like Brock Bowers, so you need another corner to play on the outside. And I feel like Alex Austin's going to be that guy, and he's kind of earned it, or even just playing over the last couple of years, in games, real games, not just in practice.
All right, well, fun way to end off the week, and of course a big week coming up next week with both a joint practice and a preseason game against the Commanders. So we shift gears a little bit from training camp into the preseason. So 2 days off. We'll be back Monday to break it down for you.